On the fourth semester, we have covered structure of financial sector compared with global markets, and also savings and investments. So today we'll be covering financial deepening part, constraints in the developing financial markets and informal markets. So hopefully within next couple of days, you should be able to complete the syllabus. Would others join in or not? If you have the contacts of other students, please call them and ask them to join in. I do not have individual contacts. Anyway, we shall start. I'm sorry about your assignments I could not complete going through. I'll take about another week to go through them. But by then we will complete the entire syllabus. So today we shall discuss about financial deepening. This subject of financial deepening is postgraduate level knowledge, but I'll try to discuss it in a simple language, and then which can be explained in a understandable concepts, and then try to make you aware of what is expected. Very practical. The concept of financial deepening is very practical and all about the present and future, of course, based on the past. And therefore, financial deepening is basically the level of penetration of financial services in the country and in the economy. And in this process, we shall discuss the constraints to development of financial markets or the development of financial deepening in the markets. As you all know, in Sri Lanka, we boast of about 95-96% of literacy rate. That is purely being able to read and write. And especially when it comes to financial literacy, we are very much below. I would guess it might be in the region of 60% or 65%, maximum 70%. because there is a good percentage of people who even do not have a bank account because of the fact that they do not connect to the financial system through banking channels or through accounts of finance companies or any other dealings. Their contribution to the economy is very little, just a primitive way of living, producing whatever the agricultural products or fisheries products, and then they go on with their living. However, the financial deepening concept professionally is aimed at incorporating or including each and every human being, each and every human being. Of course, there's a human right. So therefore, making arrangements and infrastructure for the remotest village is a bounden duty of primarily the political authority and the bureaucracy. However, the finance professionals like the money brokers and bankers and other finance professionals, there is a huge amount of responsibility to incorporate each and every individual to the system. In doing so, there are various bottlenecks and constraints, particularly the infrastructural development required. Basically, in the today's context of financial markets, the connectivity by way of communication facilities through internet and then through social media or through the banking network, finance company network, any other financial institution network. That is the reason why those older banks do have presence in each province, each district, each town, each village. They try to open up their branches. The other way around is that to connect them through communication lines, communication facilities, maybe fiber optic networks or plain vanilla communication links, oils through web connections. I think the web connections are going to be more constructive because you don't have to spend much, and then also you don't have to have fiber optic lines or other telecommunication link lines drawn up to each and every corner. The web connections to develop, the 405 telecommunication companies has to be encouraged by the political authority to give the connecting facilities to the internet from any part of the country, from any part of the country. If and when that project is completed, then from that point onwards, the financial literacy can be spelled out and spread out to encompass the individuals in the remotest village, and that part of knowledge sharing responsibility is going to be with the finance professionals, banking professionals, and of course with the university network. And then one day it has to drill down or seep through to the school level knowledge sharing, incorporating in the syllabuses of each grade, how to get connected to a website, how the currencies are exchanged, how investment and fixed income securities are traded. That type of knowledge has to be incorporated in this school level curriculum so that everybody is joining in to ensure everybody joining in the financial network. From that point in onwards, the financial deepening process will speed up, and the time and other resources available at the village level, remotest village levels, could be made part of the GDP or economy of the country. To do that, at macro level, the money stock that is being circulated has to be managed very well by the regulator. When we say money stock, you all might recall your O-level or A-level syllabuses. There's something called M1, M2. M1 is the currency notes and coins, in circulation. M2 is M1 plus, that is currency notes and coins plus the bank deposits, banks, savings accounts and current account deposits total. Then in Sri Lankan context, there is a special category called M2B, is M2, that is currency notes and coins in circulations, bank deposits of savings and current accounts, plus the NRSA, and now it is PFCA and foreign currency deposits by the general public, M2B. So like that, there is an economic jargon, economic segregation of the money stock. Now, as long as this money supply or money stock is growing. How does it grow? It grows with the GDP growth, where the goods and services are produced and sold each time. When it is expanding, additional money has to come into the system, and that money supply is managed by the central bank or the regulator. The talk of the political talks recently of money being printed rapidly is also part of managing this money stock or money supply. So for an economy to function smoothly, this money supply is an essential part, because as we learned at the outset, I think I explained, we have learned that there have been a time called barter system. Goods and services produced are exchanged without any commonly accepted money, barter system. Then with the introduction of money or commonly accepted gold like commodity, any goods and services produced can be exchanged for the commonly accepted commodity like gold or paper money or coins. So then exchange of goods and services is facilitated by this commonly accepted value stored gold or paper money or coins. So therefore, of course, there is an economic concept where when there is increased amount of money being printed, then the general population goes behind the limited goods and services, and then price level increases, thereby creating inflation. However, as sovereign authority, they do have powers and the privilege of printing money as and when required. After all, our purpose of our studies and our efforts is to enhance the livelihood of the mankind, the population. So theoretically, we measure M1, M2, M2B, etc., the money stock or money supply available in the economy. Each time when the Sri Lankan produces vegetables or paddy or fish or any other services provided, the economy grows, GDP is added on. As well as when the Sri Lankans go abroad and then work and remit their remittances to this country. That also be purchased by the banks and then ultimately by the central bank and gets into the reserves of the foreign reserves of the country. And to the value of such additions to the economy in the form of foreign currency, rupees can be printed by the central bank, because all those economic activity adds on to the GDP or the economic growth. So this mechanism of money stock being or money supply being managed has to be professionally managed not allowing inflationary pressures to step up, or the money supply being in the short supply levels, which can hamper the economic activities due to being in short supply of money. The banking system is geared to provide financial resources by way of loans and advances to facilitate production of goods and services. The production of goods and services is supported by the private sector loan growth granted by the banks and finance companies in the country. To facilitate each and every sphere of economic activity, there should be financial institutions and instruments available to cater to the financial needs of each and every economic activity and type of economic activity and the geographical location of such economic activities taking place. So in Sri Lanka, we have seen mainly the licensed commercial bank, licensed specialized bank, and registered finance companies, and few other type of financial institutions. And also financial instruments wise, we have seen only savings deposits, current account deposits, fixed deposits, and few other type of investment like government securities and so on and so forth. Whereas there's potential for development of various types of financial instruments. In fact, it is in the financial system, financial world, that there is greatest amount of innovations are taking place compared to any area. Greatest amount of financial innovation is taking place in the financial sector, because developing a new product in the financial sector is much easier than developing new things in maybe the health sector, maybe the education sector, maybe the telecommunication sector, or any other, compared to any other sector. New things can be innovated in the financial sector more conveniently. And the payment and settlement systems and the facilities provided also are subject to innovation, and these payment and settlement systems and facilities are also essential to speed up the payments, exchange of value, and facilitate economic development. Payment and settlement, payment and settlement systems wise, Sri Lanka is in the forefront in par with the developed world. But in the case of financial institutions, financial instruments, we are lagging behind. It is up to the financial professionals to prop up, innovate, and create financial institutions and financial instruments to achieve the required level of financial deepening in the country. When it comes to regulations, monitoring, and supervision, there should be new knowledge with the regulators and the supervisory level at each and every financial institution, particularly supporting the innovative ideas and enabling creation of new products, new institutions, and new skills of the workforce. The knowledgeable and skilled workforce again has to be groomed and developed to achieve the depth in financial deepening in the country. So this is a must. This is the area, financial deepening is the area which has to be focused comprehensively to achieve the economic development of a country. If you compare any developed country, these aspects are taken place first in those countries, and thereby and thereafter only the economic development has taken place. Example, the newly developed countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, in our region, in the Asia Pacific region, are good examples for having achieved the financial depth and financial deepening, and thereafter achieving the economic success in those countries. Financial deepening is also looked at as accumulation of financial assets at a rate faster than accumulation of non-financial assets. Accumulation of non-financial assets has to be beaten by the accumulation of financial assets. Increase in financial assets at a higher rate than the real assets. To do that, there should be wide variety of financial instruments, financial assets that are available for the general public to have access. Ultimate objective is to achieve economic growth. To achieve economic growth. It's true that there is a logic of competitive advantage where one country produces one good at a certain cost. If the other country can produce the same good at a lesser cost, that particular country have a competitive advantage over the first country. However, now it has been proved that even at a comparatively higher cost, the country that is producing goods and services at a faster rate and then making value addition to such goods and services produced can overcome the cost disadvantage and then price it or brand such goods and services produced to acquire financial assets more and more. So the financial deepening is a concept of ability to create financial assets at a greater pace, at a rapid space. Financial deepening is also commonly measured by the ratio of broad money to GDP. Now the M2 or the currency notes and coins in circulation plus the bank deposits. M2 is also known as broad money. So M2 divided by GDP is the ratio or the formula to measure the financial depth or financial deepening. So to practice this, we have to have a great understanding of the broad money or M2 or the currency notes and coins plus the bank deposits composition and the products, wide variety of products that are available for the general public to get into this M2 or broad money category. GDP, gross domestic product, is measured on the side of production of goods and services. That is, of course, done by the Statistics Department of Central Bank Sri Lanka regularly. And then broad money or M2 measurement is also done by them. So therefore, this measuring of financial depth of an economy is subject to this formula of M2 broad money divided by the GDP. Causes for financial deepening. The concept of real interest rate, real rate of interest, is a simple formula. You get the nominal interest rate and take away the rate of inflation. Nominal interest rate minus inflation is the real rate of interest. Irving Fisher, an eminent economist, produced this formula and explained that any individual, any company, any firm, any country would benefit if there is a surplus or plus real rate of interest in a country. Meaning, the belief is that rate of inflation or the level of increase, rate of increase of price levels, in other words, inflation, has to be lower and the nominal interest rate has to be a higher rate in any economy. Then only people will try to save money. If the nominal interest rate is lower than the rate of inflation, then there is a negative growth of their wealth. I think for some periods in Sri Lanka, in our economy as well, we have had a higher rate of inflation, whereas the nominal interest rate was a little lower. I think even the present context, the last monthly inflation published is something 8% plus, isn't it? Whereas savings deposits and to some extent fixed deposits, interest rates are 5 or 6%. In such an event, 5 or 6%, shall I say 6% minus 8.5% is a minus 2.5%, which is a negative real rate of interest. When you have a negative real rate of interest, nobody will think of postponing the using of their income or saving. They will want to buy property or any asset as quickly as possible so that the price level increase of those assets reflected through the rate of inflation helps them in creating their wealth. So therefore, financial deepening to be a reality, there should be a positive real rate of interest or a higher nominal rate of interest than the rate of inflation. Then the bank credit, particularly to the private sector. I read about a couple of days ago that the bankers and finance companies granting credit to the private sector month by month, it had been declining, which means that the banks and finance companies who are collectors of public savings by way of deposits are reducing their granting of loans to the private sector to produce goods and services, which is going to imply or signify that economy is not growing. There is less support, financial support for the economic agents in the private sector to create more economic activities and add to the GDP. So bank credit has to grow. Then there's SRR, the statutory reserve ratio. I think we have discussed a couple of times that the purpose of the SRR is to curtail the money supply. To curtail the money supply. You can arithmetically check that. Supposing if there's 10% SRR, now of course it's at 4%, but if you put a hypothetical figure of 10% SRR, the money creation by the bankers can happen only 9 times. Only 9 times. Meaning, if there's 100 rupees with one individual, we hypothetically think that 100 rupees is deposited in his bank account. Then if they 10% reserve SRR, that particular bank can on lend only 90 rupees because it has to keep 10% or 10 rupees at the central bank without earning interest. Likewise, if that particular bank grants 90 rupees loan to another customer, and that customer goes and deposits that 90 rupees in another bank, that 90 rupees, 10% SRR, that second bank only can grant 81 rupee loan to the next customer. So likewise, the restriction of money supply will happen when the standard reserve ratio or SRR is higher. Ideal situation is that there shouldn't be any SRR. Then the money creation will happen in finite time. The 100 rupees deposited at the bank can be advanced to the next customer in the total of 100 rupees. And that customer goes and deposits in another bank. Second bank also can grant another loan of another 100 rupees. So likewise, there can be money creation in finite times, which is going to help the private sector production of goods and services with infinite time money supply through creation of bank credits. So this will facilitate financial deepening or economic growth to the greatest possible level. Then the exchange rates. Exchange rates is basically the price of one currency in terms of another currency. Exchange rate in country one will appreciate only if there are more foreign currency receipts coming into the country by way of export proceeds or remittances or grants or loans or any other form, more than the outflow of foreign currency. So basically demand and supply based. So we in Sri Lanka have witnessed on several occasions the rupee depreciation because of lower value of inflow of foreign reserves, foreign remittance to the country. And despite very clear explanation by the economists, the successive political authorities and the government had not been focusing on creating value or creating facilities to produce goods and services locally. Instead, they have resorted to imports. So such imports drain the money value out of the country more than what is coming in. So this contributes to the economic external resources also to deplete. External resources deplete because of this formula of mega volumes being imported and paid for, remitted money outside, whereas small amounts are exported and the inward remittances come in on a lower volumes. Then the financial institutions to is only a few institutions, and in particular the category like development banks are not present in Sri Lanka, where the functionality of the development banks are that they lend money for development work, projects, and for long term. So the entrepreneurs who think of producing goods and services could visit development banks, submit their project proposals, feasibility reports, and obtain long-term funds at a lesser cost to support their projects. And in this process, there can be more goods and services production, as well as a bigger number of entrepreneurial population can emerge. So the wide variety or types of financial institutions has to be planned and created in Sri Lanka if ever we think of developing our country. Then the infrastructural facilities has to be created. I was telling you that payment and settlement system wise, we have done some work. Our central bank has done some work and they created the low value payment system, high value payment system, RTGS, then the scriptless security settlement system for security papers to be settled. But in other areas, financial creation of new financial instruments, creation of new financial institutions, and other areas has to be developed on a faster time span, if at all, if we are thinking of developing our country. Then the skills and technological development has to take place. There again, Sri Lanka has been blessed with skilled IT technology professionals, and the income earned through export of software products has risen to become the fourth largest revenue earner for the country. But still, we are far behind in our planning for approval of feasible projects taking place a long time, and the entrepreneurs had to visit several offices to seek approval for their projects. The bureaucratic bottlenecks and the level of corruption is a questionable area for when it comes to developing a country. There is one story I read through the internet in a YouTube clip. There have been two guys, one from Sri Lanka and one from South Korea. They have found employment in the Middle East, one of the countries, maybe Saudi Arabia or some other country. And they have been employed in a factory producing certain good or some commodity. And they have worked for about 10 or 11 years together They had developed a deep friendship between them. And then also while working, they have acquired the technical knowledge of producing that type of goods, and they have been experts. After 11 years, I think in the Middle Eastern countries, you are given a provident fund, like huge fund back when you leave the employment. So these two gentlemen had planned to, after the 11 years, they have planned to go back to their respective countries and to start up their own business, own entrepreneurial manufacturing concerns in their respective countries, and to become big time international businessmen. So when they reached their respective countries, the Sri Lankan had come to Sri Lanka, the South Korean had gone to South Korea. So the Sri Lankan had gone through the BOI and various other places, having made a feasibility report. After visiting a couple of dozens of officers, they have still failed to get his project through. But the South Korean, when he produced the feasibility report and presented it to the authorities, he had been received it wide arms and given support, even some sort of financial support and technical support, and the marketing support as well for their produce. And then he had been a successful businessman. So after about another 5 or 6 years, they have planned and gone back to South Africa, for Saudi Arabia, where they have worked before, and they have exchanged their ideas. Whereas Sri Lankan had not even started this business or production, the South Korean had started production with the help of the state support, bureaucratic support, and he had become a multimillionaire. But however, poor Sri Lankan, because of the bureaucratic bottlenecks and at some places demanding bribe, and then no one in the bureaucratic chain had even thought of directing him or channeling him to, with good advices of how to start up a business or manufacturing process. So such obstacles, difficulties has to be overcome to gain the beneficial advantage of financial deepening. The investment process, as we discussed, the limited savings that have been collected by as deposits by the banks and finance companies, the allocation of assets, such pool of funds, has to be guided and planned and guided, where the political authority and the regulatory authorities had a big role in making the bigger picture, in utilizing such assets being allocated, directed to geographical areas, various industries like housing, like technology, like healthcare, etc., etc. And then also the excess fund investment in security selection to have to be done with professional focus. As you all know, risk return trade off is another concept widely accepted in the risk management arena, where higher the risk, higher the return should be. If, for instance, if there's a higher risk in any project or any investment security, and the resultant return is lower, then everybody will reject that. There need to be risk reduction or an increase in return. That is called risk return trade-off. Then the market efficiency not only to market their produce, to exchange of financial assets, fixed income securities and other securities being traded in the financial market. The market efficiency should be improved. For that to happen, the regulatory institutions has a great deal to facilitate in removing the regulatory bottlenecks. Example, exchange control regulations. Now, of course, with the Foreign Exchange Act of 2017, a principle-based Foreign Exchange Act has come into practice, but still there are exchange controls being implemented very frequently, which are not so conducive to achieve greater heights of market efficiency. Then active versus passive management. Active versus passive management in the financial markets. Active management is basically finding undervalued securities and timing of the market. Timing in the sense, the securities when it is undervalued or trading at low level, the market participants should have adequate resources to identify the lesser value of the security compared to the market values and timely enter in the market. Such acquisition of undervalued securities will naturally pave the way to adding value to the individuals or the companies or the banks or the finance companies or the governments, when the value of that particular security goes up, when it is passive management, no attempt to find undervalued securities. There is no attempt to find undervalued securities. No attempt to timing, holding an efficient portfolio. If you analyze the stock market in the current context, you will find there is only demand for created for certain counters, certain stocks of certain companies like tile sector and those companies who are generating foreign income in foreign currency. The price of shares are being driven up with big demand. Whereas particularly a few bank counters, even though the analysts point out their net asset value is far below, net asset value is very high compared to the market price. Those shares or those stocks are not met with high demand so far. So it can be called passive management to a great extent. So what is required is active management, finding the undervalued securities and timing the market. Major classes of financial assets or securities: debt, common stock, preferred stock, and derivative securities. Debt basically are money market instruments and bonds. Common stock and preferred stocks are equity, whereas derivative securities are risk management products which help all those types of securities and other financial assets to secure a decent rate of return and avoid uncertainty. Investments and innovation, technology and delivery of services, computer advancements, more complete and timely information. So this will enable the professionals to make use of the technology and the delivery of services with innovative instruments and products. Always there has to be innovation to improve the value of investments. And then on the globalization arena, domestic firms has to compete in global markets. So for that to happen, the domestic firms has to strengthen themselves in the domestic market first, achieve a greater success in the domestic market, and then only they can step into the regional or global markets. There are few companies in Sri Lanka as well who had achieved this success in local market and stepped up to the regional and the global markets. The idea of discussion is that there should be more and more companies in that direction. For that to happen, the political authority and the bureaucratic authorities should create the conduciveness and facilitate more and more domestic firms to step outside to regional markets and global markets. Performance in the regions depend on the other regions, causes additional elements of risk. When they expand to regional and global markets from domestic market, there are additional risks that they have to face. To face such risks, the global market performance, local market performance has to be robust enough for them to give that strength and push to step into the regional market and the global markets. Key trends in globalization. International and global markets continue developing. Managing foreign exchange, diversification to improve performance, instruments and vehicles continue to develop. Information and analysis improves. Now, managing foreign exchange is entirely a skillful job, and those who have met success with the local market performance, when they step into the regional and global markets, they have to develop or acquire the skill of managing foreign exchange. Then the diversification to improve performance. When they diversify, even if the performance of one section, one sector is poor, the performance of other sectors will circumvent or make it average performance when you have diversified into several sectors. Then the financial instruments and vehicles has to be developed. These vehicles meaning the path to investment and or payment and settlements, to achieve the desired goals. Such vehicles could be developed. Then information and analysis improve. Post analysis and finding out the reasons for success and reason for weaknesses, and such information being shared internally and then also with external supervisory authorities is vital, because any other followers or entrepreneurs who they think that they might proceed on the same path could be advised of such analysis and for them to improve better. Securitization and credit enhancement offers opportunities for investors and originators. The securitization and the credit enhancement has happened in almost all the developed markets, developed financial markets, as a prelude to economic success. So therefore, opportunities for investors and originators through securitization and credit enhancement is a vital milestone. Changes in the financial institution and regulation. Changes in financial institution and the regulation has to happen to suit the new economic development targeted. So these financial institutions has to take new shape, or an altogether entirely new financial institution has to be created. And then regulations too has to be evolved to face the new challenges in the economic development process. Improvement in financial information capabilities. You will observe that current day practices or the present practices with innovative financial information sharing at a faster speed helps more and more institutions and enterprises to develop. Credit enhancement and its role. There is no compromise for credit enhancement. Financial resource is required even by the wealthiest businessman. So therefore, credit enhancements, particularly the private sector credit growth, has to take place. In other words, particularly the banks and finance companies who are the collectors of the national savings as deposits has to share the financial resources by way of loans and advances to the private sector very constructively, if not the private sector will not be in a position to achieve the required level of produce or financial deepening. In fact, they'll be starving for financial resources in their work that is planned. Financial engineering, repackaging services of financial intermediaries coupled with innovation, bundling and unbundling of cash flows, slicing and dicing of cash flows has to happen all the time. When such innovation takes place to suit the respective clients, the banking and finance company institutions has to make use of innovative ideas and tailor make the financial packages as we call it, repackaging of services of financial intermediaries, so that the maximum use of the financial resource could be achieved by the such borrowers and turning them into the final products and thereby achieving their economic success and sharing the economic success with all other stakeholders, including the government, by way of paying taxes. And the bankers are also being paid commissions and interest to strengthen their P&L statement and the balance sheet. Examples are the strips and CMOs, collateralized mortgage obligations, dual purpose funds, principal and interest splits. There are various names to identify such repackaged, innovative products that the financial sector could construct, design, construct, and implement. The strips, we are talking of strips here, other than collateralized mortgage obligations. Remember the collateralized mortgage obligations we discussed when we discussed the Northern Rock Company, Northern Rock Bank in UK, collateralized mortgage bonds, and the sad episode of subprime mortgages in the Northern Rock and Lehman Brothers as well. But strips, what are strips? Strips is the acronym of separate trading of registered interest and principal of securities. Separate trading of registered interest and principal of securities. It's called strips. Strips let investors hold and trade the individual interest and principal components of eligible treasury notes and bonds as separate securities. Strips are not issued or sold directly to investors. Striping off or strips. Why would an investor buy strips? Strips are a popular choice for fixed income investors. They have extremely high credit quality because they are backed by US Treasury securities. Since strips are sold at a discount, investors do not require a large stash of cash to purchase them. As we said, strips let the investors hold and trade the individual interest or principal component of eligible treasury notes and bonds as separate securities. Meaning, if you take an example of the treasury bond, a 10-year treasury bond, semi-annual coupons are stripped off and treated as separate strips of financial instruments. So for 10-year bond, there will be 20 coupon payments plus the maturity proceeds. So there will be 21 strips when you take a 10-year bond. So each strip can be then sold separately. Each strip can be sold separately. They are sold at a discount because you know the value of the strip and that becomes the face value and then becomes tradable at a discount. The discount factor is going to be the interest income of the prospective buyer, like in the case of treasury bill. What are strips used for? I'm discussing the features of a features of strips to give you an idea how the financial innovation can take place. And then these type of strips are being traded in the US and other markets for decades and decades. At least now we can think of inventing such instruments in our market because we trade a hell of a lot on treasury bonds. Separate trading of registered interest and principal securities of strips was created to provide investors with another alternative in the fixed income arena that could meet certain investment objectives that were difficult to achieve using traditional bonds and notes. To provide investors with another alternative in fixed income arena that could meet again, so that would meet certain investment objectives that were difficult to achieve using traditional bonds and notes. How do strips work? Why are strips popular? Strips are zero coupon securities issued by brokerage firms and based on receipts for treasury securities. Based on its receipts, the firm then strips the principal from the interest and creates zero coupon securities based on portions or units of the principal or interest of the security. It is very clear, isn't it? Now, when you take an example of a treasury bond, the coupon interest is segregated and traded separately as a zero coupon bond. So based on its receipts, the firm then strips the principal from the interest and creates a zero coupon security based on portions or units of the principal or interest of the security. Are treasury strips long term? The US Treasury issues treasury notes that have semi-annual interest payments and mature in 10 years. The strips process the strips process produces 21 separate debt securities, including 20 strip bonds and one zero coupon bond. The semi-annual coupon interest payments, there are 20 in number for a 10-year note, and the maturity proceed of one, so 21 separate debt securities. How is strip bond created? A strip bond is a debt obligation whose principal and coupon payments are removed or stripped by the investment firms or dealers and sold separately to investors. An investor who buys the separated principal from the bond the investor who buys the separated principal from the bond, known as the residue, receives an amount equal to the face value of the bond when it matures. What are strips? Fixed income. Strips is an acronym for separate trading of registered interest and principal security. Treasury strips are fixed income securities. They pay fixed income on maturity, which are purchased below their face value and offer no interest in the form of coupon payments before maturity. Basically, discounted securities like treasury bills. So the newly created strip becomes a discounted security which is traded in the market. Who are the most likely purchasers of strips? The best answer is a pension fund and retirement accounts are the large purchasers of strips. These zero coupon bonds are purchased at a deep discount and are held to maturity to fund future retirement liabilities. For insurance companies also, this trading of strips will be a big business if such strips are created with proper regulatory aspects and settlement aspects created and developed. Because with each issue of a bond, treasury bond, you can create several strips. Sorry. So this type of new innovations could be planned, especially by the brokerage houses. If you take the innovation into your heart, see now the strips are being used by these pension funds and the retirement accounts so that each retirement benefit to be paid can be matched with the zero coupon bond or the strip that is to mature when the retirement liability become payable or due. Do strips have a purchasing power risk? Strips are zero coupon treasury obligations. These have the highest level of purchasing power risk. If there is inflation, market interest rates are forced upwards. With increase of inflation, market interest naturally goes up, or the regulators will hike the nominal interest rates. And zero coupon bonds, such as strips, fall dramatically in price. Fall dramatically in price. When the interest rates goes up, the bond price goes down. Treasury receipts are broker created zero coupon bonds. Broker created zero coupon bonds. How are strips taxed? Interest earned from treasury securities is exempt from state and local income taxes, being derivatives of government securities. You can understand the tax exemption is possible. The imputed treasury stripped interest you must report each year for your federal taxes is also exempt. Do not include the interest from your strip investments in your taxable income when filing state taxes. So therefore, there's clear, this is in the United States, there's clear tax saving when you invest in strips, particularly derivatives of treasury notes or treasury bonds. So the future for a country like Sri Lanka, there is immense future if people get together and then think of creating new instruments, new institutions, and the financial depth or deepening in our country. Globalization continues and offers more opportunities. Securitization continued development of derivatives and exotics. Strong fundamental foundation is critical. Integration of investments and corporate finance. Integration of investments and corporate finance again will add strength to these newly developed products. Naturally, because as you see, when certain IPOs that came to being since of late, in the last few weeks, were oversubscribed many times, meaning they are there are investors waiting for new opportunities. So it's a matter of thinking hard and thinking positively and thinking of the future for the institutions and the instruments to be created and be made available for trading. Responsibilities: liquidity risk management, market risk management, and pricing of products and services. So, for all these aspects or responsibilities, these new innovations will make contributions and add value so that the new products will add to the product portfolio of the country that have been used, and thereby there can be new thinking of creating new institutions, particularly to do this part type of innovative products and help the financial deepening in every nook and corner in the country. Dealing operations, hedging, purchase of a contract that will rise in value and offset a drop in value of another contract. Hedges are undertaken to reduce risk by protecting an owner from loss. So such instruments created, such institutions created will provide opportunity for hedging purposes and purchase of a contract that will rise in value and offset a drop in value of another product contract. Then hedges are undertaken to reduce risk by protecting an owner from loss. Then arbitrage, a trading strategy based on purchase or sale of a contract in one market and simultaneously selling or buying selling or buying it in another market at more advantageous price to obtain a risk-free profit on the price differential. So this is called arbitrage. So all this has to happen in the context of financial deepening, hedging, arbitrage, and speculation. Speculation is an attempt to make a profit by trading on expectations about future prices. So out of the three, hedging and arbitrage, hedging is safer strategy. Arbitrage is another safer strategy, but speculation is high risk strategy. Depending on your risk appetite and the risk appetite of the firm or company, speculation can happen with certain limits attached to them. And then the speculation is an attempt to make a profit by trading on expectations about future prices, which is a high risk strategy. Then dealing operations basically is maintaining statutory reserve at central bank for licensed commercial banks, then maintaining minimum liquid asset ratio for banks and finance companies both, and maintaining minimum vault cash balances for all financial institutions, maintaining minimum balances in nostro accounts for those who maintain nostro accounts. So these operations has to take place, and those innovative products and then institutions will support enhanced dealing practices and transactions to achieve the maintenance of these minimum standards. Roles, services, and responsibilities, administration and record keeping, then diversification and divisibility, professional management, reduce transaction cost and maximize profit and reduce losses. Through these roles and played and services and responsibilities, only you achieve a sustainable growth through administration and record keeping, diversification and divisibility, professional management, reduce transaction cost, and maximize profits and reduce losses. A sustainable performance is achieved. So we have come to the end of the presentation. So basically, the summary of financial deepening is not only broad basing the using of financial markets by each and every citizen of the country, wherever he or she lives, and to reap the benefit of such financial services, plus increasing the length and breadth and the depth of the financial markets through increased financial instruments available and financial institutions available, and the manpower, financial financial manpower with financial literacy, financial knowledge, plus over a period of time enhancing the financial literacy levels, knowledge levels of the entire population to make a payment, to make an investment, to maybe Colombo Stock Exchange for one of these financial products that are innovatively brought to the market, maybe repurchase agreement, reverse repurchase agreements, options, futures, contracts, and thereby achieving faster rate of growth in financial assets than the growth rate of the real assets. Thereby you increase the GDP level to the maximum. So the financial deepening as a concept, as I told you at the outset, is studied at postgraduate level, and then it is useful because money brokers are also one unique profession and one unique set of professionals in the market who should be driving the market development to achieve the real growth levels and create more value in the market. When the money brokers plan and design their activities and execute their services with honesty and integrity, the end users or general consumers will benefit by way of really real low prices in the commodities, goods and services produced by the manufacturers and producers and the service organizations. So therefore, it has to be done skillfully and guided through the entire profession of financial institutions, because you all as money brokers have the contact or should contact all the parties, all the institutions in this process. Usually you do every day, on day to day, contacting your clients. That has to be expanded to a broader service level. All right. So that makes the today's class to an end. Anybody wants to make a comment or ask a question?
No questions from me, sir. Sorry,
Thank you,
I'm
Nilok. Thank you. You are the first to
sorry.
answer always. Thank you.
Sorry, sir. I was a bit late to join the class today. I was on a call. Sorry, sir.
Oh, good, good. Anybody else? Any question? Any comment?
No question, sir.
Thank you, Trevor.
No question, sir.
Thank you, Mail. Okay.
No question, sir.
Oh, Kavindi, how are you? Thanks.
Doing good, sir.
Good, good, good. Okay, then let's meet tomorrow at 4 p.m.